Aloha, everybody. Welcome to the program. This is Mike Kai from Inspire Church. It was our heart to have different pastors interview different leaders who are running for the office of governor. As a result of that, they have been given the same 4 questions, other than their introductions and some bonus questions at the end. And I hope that these interviews will make it very easy for you to pick who you want to see as your next governor. We'd like to take this moment right now to lean in and to listen to our Lieutenant Governor, our current Lieutenant Governor, Josh Green.
Aloha, Lieutenant Governor Green. You are running for the top office in the state. Thank you for being here, and we're going to get right to it.
Thank you, Pastor.
Okay.
I'm so glad to be here.
Here's a big one. It's the why question. Why did you choose to run for governor?
Well, I ran for governor because I believe we have to have leaders that care about people, that will stick to their word, do the job, never quit, and who have experience in running the state and know how to protect our people and care for them when there are times of need. Over the last 2 years, we've been through a lot together with COVID, and it was the honor of a lifetime to be the lieutenant governor during this period, taking on the challenge, making sure that we didn't lose the lives of our kupuna, that we were able to vaccinate people who chose to get vaccinated. So it was that perspective that led me to decide ultimately to run for governor. But I think we need a different kind of leader. I think we need a leader of compassion, a leader with mission, intent. And that's what I hope people see in me. As you know, we've spent time talking about some of these things in the past. And I think that the governorship can be a way to give people hope and to lead in that way. So that's why I'm running and why Jamie and I decided to pursue the governorship as a family.
Wow. You know, you mentioned the pandemic, the 2 years, over 2 years now. It kind of tossed us all into a quandary, topsy-turvy. We got turned around.
Yes.
And I've got a good question for you here. Given your experience that you just alluded to, what do you feel it is going to take to turn the state around and flip it back to right side up?
Sure. Yes, it did turn everyone upside down.
Yeah.
People's businesses were challenged. They were afraid for their lives. We shut down in a way because of uncertainty that no one could have expected. And then we began to rebuild also. It will take some faith that we've done the right things as a people. People have made so many good decisions and so many personal sacrifices to get us to where we are. I don't know if everyone realizes this or knows this, but Hawaii, because of our shared sacrifice, meant that we had the lowest COVID rate in the country and the lowest mortality rate for COVID in the country. Now, I look at this as a physician because that's my other life.
Sure.
I'm an emergency room physician and family practice doctor. But it was that sacrifice, people choosing to be safe around other people who are vulnerable, really a sense of ohana that made it possible for us to do so well. But it also meant people that were young have met great challenges with their developmental milestones. It meant that the isolation for teenagers caused them to lose some of that time that they would have had to grow in high school and maybe miss some of their life milestones like graduation. Some of those things will be hard to get back, but families now know that we can deal with it. We can live with this virus. It's less impactful now, of course, than it was in 2020 and 2021. We have a lot of immunity and a lot of protection. And also we now know that we can be resilient and not hopefully overreact if it continues to seasonally affect us. I think we're already getting back. We put together the Safe Travels program, my team did, which meant that if you had a test, a pretest, you could come to Hawaii. What that did was it brought 8 million visitors back instead of having none. And having that start in October of 2020 saved our economy. Our economy otherwise would have been bleeding $450 million every month. And it wasn't about economics for me. It was about people surviving. However, it was a more complex thing than just preventing the virus from spreading, because if people don't have any kind of income, then they can't afford food. If they don't have income, they can't afford their homes or their kids' tuition. And we would have seen a mass exodus of our people. So we've already begun to rebuild. I've put a lot of safeguards in place so that we can continue to manage, even if the virus is here for another year or two. And people are now getting back to kind of normal. But psychologically, I can tell you as a physician, it does take a process. People can't just flip the switch and feel good about things. They have to get back into the community. They have to get back comfortably into church. They have to get back comfortably into seeing their doctor, and that takes time.
I want to kind of add on to this. I remember when we talked last, you mentioned to the public the mental health crisis is huge. And at one point you said there's more of them than there are of COVID people coming into hospitals. Where are we in that? And how do you see your role and leadership as governor affecting that? Because there's not a person I talk to now with the shootings, obviously, all kinds of things. You want to comment on that?
Yes, I absolutely do. That's correct. When I do my ER shifts on the weekends, I now see more people who have anxiety issues or depression than I see with symptoms from COVID or breathing problems, which tells you a lot. It tells you that the impact of isolation and the impact of forced change ultimately has to be lifted to get our mental health care or mental health capacity back to normal. What we have to do is rebuild the mental health system. A lot of people retired or left the field. It's the least reimbursed field in healthcare. So a lot of people go to other disciplines in nursing and in medicine out of necessity because we had pandemic problems and we had people that had to cover the hospitals. It also is a reality that we don't have enough adolescent mental health care. For a full third of our state, people don't have adequate access to mental health care services at all. So we have to rebuild the mental health care system in the rural areas like Ka'u and Kona, where I'm from. We have to provide ways to bring more social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists into the fold. We have to, and I will propose this as governor, treat behavioral health, which means mental illness and addiction, as primary care, because so many people tragically self-medicated and had more problems with addiction. We have to do all these things and look at it through the primary healthcare lens so it's more easily tucked into our healthcare system. There's a lot of work to do to build the healthcare system back up, but we've got great people, and we should rely on also the services we have, like at churches, where we have people of great heart and spirit that can help heal a lot of these wounds. It's not just a medical concern. It is actually a spiritual concern too. I say that because of our audience today, but also because it's very real.
Let's talk water, Governor. The water crisis. I mean, that has been in every conversation almost that we bump into these days. And what is your perspective on handling the water crisis and the food crisis that we have in Hawaii with only supposedly 12 days of food on Oahu, as that has been said? This is alarming. Your comment?
It is. So first and foremost, water. A lot of people say water is life. In the Greek, it's ariston menhudor, okay? Yeah. And a lot of our practitioners, read the Greek and read the Latin, and it's relevant even today. So what we have to do is we have to reestablish a water table that is safe from the fuel spill. Now, as early as 2014, as health chairperson, I was pushing hard on the Navy to fix what they had that was broken. They pushed back then, and that was a challenge because we have seen that the chickens have come home to roost. Now, that water will be pure over time, but it takes a lot of filtration, and the water table will be healed, but we have to remove all that fuel above ground. So I've already begun the process of making sure that there's a private sector solution combined with the Navy. That's PAR Hawaii to bring the fuel above ground, and it will be a very large expenditure on the federal side. The Navy will have to pay for this. So that's one thing. So water has to be preserved, and we do that for many reasons. One, first and foremost, is health of our children and our kupuna. You can't have water that's toxic, and so that has to be done right now. The Navy will have to support that healthcare need as well. More than that, we have a housing crisis in our state, and we can't build new houses if we don't have adequate water access, because you have to have water meters. You have to have water for a community before you build the housing. Otherwise, the housing really can't be lived in. So we have to go to new, renewed sources of water. I think that we will have to explore a lot of different new water sources. We'll expedite wells in my administration. We will also look at desalinization and other technologies. Now, let me pivot to agriculture and food security. It will be difficult for a long time to ever grow enough food for all of our people. However, my team is looking at a plan that harkens back to the old and the new. So the older part of agriculture, which was very sustainable, were things like fish ponds. And our Native Hawaiian hosts, our host community and culture, did a wonderful job feeding somewhere between 300,000 and 700,000 people, it's said. And that's very important to recognize. Now, that water has to be clean, and with the industrial times, the water is not quite as clean as it was. So we can use that old ag, but also new ag. New ag is an interesting way to go about things. And I'm not talking about GMOs or those things. I'm talking about doing agriculture in a vertically integrated way where you can grow lots of ag, lots of produce in a controlled setting and use usually about only 10% as much water. And that's important, because if you can use far less water, you can grow a whole lot more ag. And so with proper investment in agriculture, and again, some of these things will have to be supported by government, but to the good end of having food for everybody more than 12 days, it's worth it. So we're already doing things like lettuce and tomatoes, but I would like to see us grow kalo and look both to the traditional ways and the new ways. It would be excellent if we could grow more than half of our food here in the islands. It's also healthier to do that. We'll have less diabetes and less heart disease if we do these things and we move away from processed food. Again, that's the doctor in me speaking. It's kind of what sets me apart from a lot of the other people that are asking to run government, because I do have that health perspective. But these are some pretty complex challenges, and I will bring an excellent cabinet together to solve the problems.
Here's a kind of a generic question, but it's an important one. Where do you stand on family values? And feel free to comment.
Sure. I'm a unique person in a family. Okay, I have a really wonderful, loving wife named Jamie. So Jamie is from the Church of Latter-day Saints. I was raised Jewish on one side and Russian Orthodox on the other side. So I got a little Christianity in me and a little Judaism in me. And I'm married to a Mormon girl who went to Brown University and went to law school here.
Now, you went to Brown as well also.
I went to Swarthmore, actually. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Brown was my safety school for the purposes of college.
Okay. I stand to be correct.
Sorry. Okay. No, I think Brown is an extraordinary place. And we're proud of Jamie and what she does. She's a Hawaiian woman. She would be the first Hawaiian first lady if elected, if we're elected as a family. And I'll tell you what, it's a unique family, which creates an interesting set of values. We have two beautiful children, Maya and Sam. They went to the Jewish preschool, and now they go to a ward for their Church of Latter-day Saints faith. And we have a lot of relatives that are in and around all of the other parts of Christianity. We are a very values-driven family. We give back a lot. I'm constantly looking to do medical missions and reach out that way. So when we look at our values and our family values, we're very welcoming of all religions and faiths. We tend to be a family that allows for a lot of privacy in people's decisions. Sometimes when people are commenting about family values, they ask themselves the questions about abortion or whether or not they want to have large families or small families. I don't shy away from those questions because I'm understanding that everyone has a different belief system. But we are a spiritual family in that sense. Not a traditional one because of so much mixing in our religion.
That's quite a blend.
It is. It's a wild blend at home, and it's actually a blessing because it's really a reflection from our perspective of what Hawaii is. There's so many families that are mixed races, mixed upbringing, mixed economic states, mixed religions, and we've made it work. So we have Hapa children and kind of a unique lifestyle.
Now, one or both go to an Episcopal school.
Well, one's at Iolani and one's at a charter school. Yes, so go figure.
So then there's that.
Yes, there's also that. And we're open to whatever's best for our kids. Everyone's a little different, right? Everyone in their family life has to decide where they're going to invest their resources, what they believe in, how strongly they believe in it. I wish I had more time for some of the activities that they do in that social space. I tend to have my free time consumed by working in the hospital, but we try to make time to be together every night.
That is a full life,
it is,
Lieutenant Governor.
Yes.
Given the Supreme Court leak,
yes.
This is interesting, how will you handle the abortion issue, and what is your view on the right to life? Now, this question was coming.
Oh, yeah. I'm not shy about it. If you ask me the question, would Jamie or I we talked about this morning, actually, if we had a child unexpectedly, I'm 52 and Jamie is right smack dab in the middle of her 40s, we would not have an abortion. As a physician, I do not impose my belief system or what I would do as a person on a woman or her husband if they made a different choice. I always try to encourage people to actually plan. You asked about family planning before. Plan to have your child when you're ready, or your family when you're ready, so you're never faced with that problem. I do have a strong belief that we have to encourage people to make the right decisions, but also to be private and respectful of them, because I worry that if they, for instance, felt very strongly about one of my decisions, that they not curtail that either. And so I'm careful about that. But I can tell you my family, for example, adopted my younger brother. And we were grateful to be a part of that because someone made the choice to have their child when they were teenagers. My younger brother's parents, biologic parents, were very young when they had him. And so my parents and my family adopted. So that was a blessing also for us because he's a part of my life just like any brother or sister would be. I know that people sometimes think that these are political questions, party this, Democrat, Republican that. I don't view it that way. I try to support everyone in their moments of need, and I encourage them to do all that they can to never have to face that question because it is a gut-wrenching question, and I know for many it's a truly spiritual problem if they have to go down that road toward abortion.
If elected governor, what will be your main focus?
My main focus will be housing, affordable housing for our people. The reason I say that, people normally expect me to say something about healthcare, universal healthcare, which I do support and will fight for. But housing is the largest challenge that we have as a people. If you ask yourself, why do we not have enough nurses? It's because we don't have housing that nurses can afford. Therefore, our kupuna can't get care. If we ask ourselves, why is it so difficult to have top-notch public schools? It's because we don't have enough houses that teachers can afford and therefore can live in Hawaii. So it always comes back to affordable housing. We have a shortage of police officers and firefighters. Once again, people working hard in the middle class cannot afford $1 million house on Oahu. So they often will go to the mainland. And then we lose the capacity to be a wonderful community that keeps our children and grandchildren here. So affordable housing is number one. There are other major challenges I intend to take up. The homeless crisis. I feel very passionately that housing and a roof over someone's head is a human right. And so I've already begun to build kauhale communities across our state. My hope is that we'll build one in every region. We've built 2 so far, and the 3rd is on its way. It's because people who are homeless are often suffering post-traumatic stress disorder or mental illness in general or drug addiction. And the moment you put a roof over someone's head, their suffering comes down, so it's harm reduction, their cost comes way down. You can then invest in anything. You could invest in new homes, you could invest in schools, you can invest in tax breaks, you can invest in whatever you want. So homelessness is number 2. A lot of people like to say that affordability is the thing that we should be focused on, but that's what you get when you have affordable housing. That's the single largest cost driver for our people. So you'll see me make a moonshot to build housing using Hawaiian Homeland's resources, decreasing the amount of illegal Airbnbs that take up our housing here in the state, and getting rid of a lot of the red tape that is constraining growth and development, which slows it down for years and years and years and then causes huge increases in cost.
You alluded to this earlier.
Yes.
What truly distinguishes you from the other candidates? And maybe you could amplify on what you already started commenting on.
Sure. I am very different. I've always been different as a person in leadership because I came to politics through service, through the National Health Service, which brought me to Hawaii. And being a physician, taking care of families, seeing them in their moments of crisis, always informed what I would be like as a legislator. So when I saw families with children who had autism and couldn't get care, as a legislator, I made sure we passed legislation so every kid with autism got care. When I saw we had no trauma services, we changed the tobacco taxes, so we built a trauma system. But through these last couple of years dealing with COVID, and I'm the only one running for governor on the Democrat or Republican side, for that matter, that actually was engaged in this crisis. No one else was. I've seen exactly what we face, and it was an existential problem as a state. And so it has uniquely prepared, in my opinion, of course, to serve as governor and be ready for 4 years to not only end this crisis, but also bring us back and to change our perspective. But I view my role as a person to unite others. I think that we should have a humanitarian approach to government, and that is what I've been. You saw me serve in the medical mission to Samoa, where our team, with charitable gifts and support from the private sector, vaccinated 36,997 people in 2 days when we went to Samoa. And that tells you how extraordinary, if you come together, Hawaii can be. So I will be a servant leader, and it is very different from the other candidates. They're all good people, I'm sure, on some level. I don't know all of them. Everyone has something different to offer, but I think it was I guess, meant to be that I would be lieutenant governor during the pandemic. And now it has prepared me to become governor. And I ask that humbly. I mean, I humbly ask for people's support and consideration, because I want people to view me as a human being, and Jamie as my partner, and our family as the family that can help heal the wounds in Hawaii after all of this challenge.
There's a deeply spiritual component. And I know this because we've had other conversations, but how do you see, now with the governorship in sight,
Yes,
how do you see the church and the government working together?
I see it as hand in hand. One thing that was very beautiful to see during the pandemic, during all of the chaos and changes in people's lives and all of the incredible stresses that this brought, it was amazing to see the churches come together and ask, how can they help? How can they be integrated into the response? We went to so many churches and set up pods to vaccinate people. And so many churches stepped up and fed people when people had challenges with food security. And already the churches are helping me build the kauhale and coming with spirituality so that people come off their drugs. So I'm already incorporating that into how I behave as lieutenant governor. And it was a very good thing to do, because there has historically been this idea that maybe they have to be separated. And I don't believe that's true when you're talking about how to help people. We each have our own different spirituality. Some people may be born again. Some people may be more in the Old Testament ways as maybe a conservative or Orthodox Jewish person. There are people who, are believers in Islam. But when we come together and do these projects where people are struggling and suffering, it is an incredibly powerful thing. And there are resources in the church. Usually they are human resources. Sometimes they are economic resources. And the government needs to also be supportive of people that do things well. We're going to embark on a mission to educate every child before kindergarten, pre-K education. That should be available through relationships with the churches, community centers, people who want to donate their space. There's so much resource out there. I mentioned earlier the Samoa experience. When we asked for volunteers, by the next day, we had 485 volunteers, many of whom came because they heard it through their church or their hospital. And that was not a government enterprise or adventure. That was a human enterprise in Hawaii that brought people together. And so if we're smart and thoughtful, we'll do the same thing for other challenges with church leadership, government leadership, business leadership. A lot of that overlaps, of course, but there should be a seamless process, because there's so much need now in society that we would be silly and remiss not to lean on each other as we try to solve the problems.
So you see this as a divine partnership.
It is. It's a calling if you do it right, okay? If you ask to serve for the right reasons, you can do great things. You'll notice that I don't demagogue any issues that divide people, which is why I don't intentionally seek to fight over abortion, gay marriage, high taxes, low taxes, putting people into one box or another. I don't do that, because there is so much more between us that unites us and gives us the capacity to help others, that those things that divide us don't help. Sometimes they maybe help inform people what someone is spiritually or what their belief system is. But when you move just a half step away from that, you see so much more capacity to do good things together. I believe that. Otherwise I would probably have a lot of marital problems at home. I would probably have a lot of challenges dealing with people of differences of opinion at the legislature. Instead, when I see an opportunity to bring people together, I'll do it. And that's how, if I'm governor, I will govern. I hope that America can see that Hawaii, in its unique diversity and diversity of upbringing and opinions, can lead in this way.
Yeah.
We'll see. That's a big ask.
Lieutenant Governor Dr. Josh Green, thank you so very much for sharing your heart with us.
Thank you,
today.
Pastor. I so appreciate you.
God bless you.
You too.
Thank you, Norman Nakanishi, for interviewing Josh Green. Well, you've heard what he had to say, those 4 same questions, and I think they're very informative and they're going to help you decide on who is going to be the next governor. Remember, we remind everybody on all of our programs that as the body of Christ, as people of God, that we're going to vote biblically, not necessarily politically or culturally. So Josh Green's information is below. Click on that, and if you want more information. Until then, thank you and God bless.